We have all these OpenAI people testifying, saying how hard it is to compete with Google.
Oh, poor OpenAI.
We've got the government probably making Google sell off its ad network business, deciding what the remedy is going to be for its search business.
It's kind of entertaining when Google's like, ooh, ChatGPT, and ChatGPT's like, ooh. But it's just like everyone's just talking their book with the lawyer behind them.
I'm taking it more seriously than I think Sam is with the Meta trial now looming. If that also tends to go and not in favor of Meta, and we start to see dismantling of parts of Google and Meta, that has humongous repercussions. We have not seen that since Microsoft.
I get that it feels like theater, but antitrust isn't just about what happens in court. It's also about narratives that shape market behavior. It feels to me like some of this is a response to concentrated power and what is going to be built. Like, I found it really interesting that OpenAI was first to raise their hand this morning about, hey, we'll buy Chrome.
That made me crack up. Oh my God. Well, hello, friends. Welcome to More or Less. It's been a minute. Nice to see you guys.
The quad returns.
We spring braked.
Separately.
We skied.
Separately.
We did whatever April situations called for. And now, actually, none of my co-hosts are talking because we're all eating protein. Okay, guys. There has been more seismic technology news. I don't even know where to begin. But I do think one of the most interesting things to me over the last couple of weeks have been these antitrust trials that are happening in DC with Google and Meta. And specifically with Google, we're seeing sort of like the remedies hearings in some of these search trials. But this was literally a decision I had to make, or one of my editors had to make, which was like, do we send our reporter to the Meta trial to hear Kevin Systrom on the stand, or do we send him to the Google trial to hear OpenAI on the stand?
I think you probably need more reporters.
Yeah, thanks, Sam. But anyway, we sent them to the Google trial to hear OpenAI. But like they're going back and forth, but literally those testimonies were at the same time.
How are the porta potties? It sounds like Coachella. Like, what act are you going to go see?
I don't know. I haven't asked my reporters down there what the porta potty situation is.
It'd be pretty cool if they did pop-ups at the antitrust trials, you know, like activations for marketing.
New marketing surface.
I actually have recruited reporters at trials before because like the kinds of reporters who go to trials are generally very enterprising and scrappy. So
what else could you recruit? That's a good strategy. Who else could you recruit? Who else could you like recruit that would show up at random places?
I mean, you mean for reporters? I can recruit reporters in a lot of places.
No, not for reporters. Like, is there a place I can report? Like, I like the idea of recruiting people who have made the effort.
Like recruiting PMs?
Yeah, like where would a PM go? Not press juicery.
Hydrox.
Ooh, good idea.
Do you guys know about Hydrox?
Well, I actually am I think I made a Hydrox error, which is, so Hydrox is a fitness race. It's like CrossFit meets running race, and you like do an exercise and then run a lap and do it. And Clay Robbins, who used to work at Slow and still collaborates on a bunch of stuff, has his own fund. And then Chad started mentioning Hydrox to me like 6 months to a year ago. And I was like, that sounds interesting, but I didn't focus on it. And then I saw pictures on the internet last week of Sujay and Chad looking just ripped. Like ripped. Like these guys look like beasts.
Like Brad Pitt, maybe. Yeah.
Like Brad Pitt. And I thought to myself, kind of want one of those pictures.
Nothing triggers Sam Lessin more.
I love they look like they've had so much protein. And so I think Hydrox is a thing. And I'm going to have to travel to a city to do it. And I think Chad will be my Sherpa.
Is this Chad Byers? Who's Chad? Okay.
Yes, but I'm a little upset that
We almost had Chad on the pod last week.
It's kind of like being a venture investor and like having the thing, but then missing the deal. Like I missed the ripped photo on Instagram.
Wait, what is Hydrox?
It's High Rocks, Sam. High Rocks. The participants run 1 kilometer, then they do 1 functional workout station, and then they repeat that 8 times. It's hosted indoors in big exhibition halls, so it's an immersive race where spectators can support you from the very beginning to the very end.
For what it's worth, I think recruiting finance people at this is a good idea.
It's a fitness race.
Yeah.
I think the people who win fitness races are probably good at finance.
Yeah. Sure.
I would go recruit my PMs at like the DEXA scan place. I feel like PMs are really into like quantitative self stuff and like all their body analytics. And good engineers. And so I would park my ice cream truck at the DEXA scanning station in Redwood City.
Before or after? Because you'd kind of want to do the ice cream after. You don't want to like have an ice cream and then get a DEXA scan.
But it's protein ice cream, so it doesn't matter.
I think I could break a lot of news at Pro Nuvo. If I just said
That's a great idea. That's a great idea.
Dave, where would you hunt for people?
I'm just so confused right now. I'm over here on Hyrox's website wondering why they have a section about Hyrox young stars.
See, that's their feeder program.
You know, when I was on the board of Eventbrite, there was always one of these things. There was always a new version of this where you could like do some fitness competition and electrocute yourself. And
that's a thing. That's a fitness technique people are into.
It was the Tough Mudders.
Tough Mudder, yeah.
No, and Tough Mudder, I'm pretty sure it was started by the people who then started drone racing. Nick Horbachevsky, who worked at Bain with me, or did he go to Harvard with me? I can't even remember. I'm so old.
Is this in the same lineage, or is this like in the same lineage as, you know, CrossFit? This is like the ultimate CrossFit competition, basically.
Yeah, I think it's CrossFit-y.
Well, if any of our listeners out there want to spin up a team and compete in a league with us for something we're not sure how it even works, we're probably game. So,
but Sam, do we only have to do one of these to get shredded? Is that what's going on?
I don't know, but whatever photography tricks they're doing, like I love Sujay, I love Chad, but they look ripped. And so I just want to know what that is.
I'm actually kind of into your reaction to this, Sam, because I thought your general take had been like you fix it in post. Like that all photography is going towards like au natural, and then you like fix it in post with filters and AI.
So really, Hyrox is just a filter. You do this race, then get a photo. It's just a filter.
No, it's an expensive filter. Like the way. So here's what it is.
Expensive in money and energy and time.
Well, it's just a competition for like Instagram photos. So like basically the problem with AI is it's devalued filters to the point that everyone looks hot. So that's no longer a game anyone cares about. So now you need to do things that are like undeniable, like that are harder to fake, to prove and spend more money and more time. It's kind of like, you know how like all the stupid influencers would like rent disgusting fake sets of private planes to look like they have private planes. Like that game is that everyone knows that game. That game's stupid.
But like, do I have to get my hair and makeup done before events? Like, is that like where, like, I don't.
No, I think it's like, you want to do stuff that's the unfakeable stuff, right? That's why like, you want like for like the game, the social marketing game of Instagram, like you want to like do things like video is better than photos because video is harder to fake, right? Like if you see a photo of a sporting thing, your instant thing is like that's edited and faked, right? Because it's too easy. Video is harder to fake, so video is the battleground. But at a certain point, video becomes too easy to fake, so it's going to have to be like a leveled up game of proving cred. And like, I feel like Hydrox is like, it's like a photo filter, but like an expensive travel-y one.
I think I follow that. Thanks for the social media consultation. Okay, guys, but we got to go back. Like, over to you, Sam. Will you read these headlines? We've got the government, you know, probably making Google sell off its ad network business, you know, deciding what the remedy is going to be for its search business. We have all these OpenAI people testifying, saying how hard it is to compete with Google. We actually have Google. Maybe I'll focus this question a little bit more. We have Google saying that, yes, ChatGPT is having an impact on their searches, but saying it specifically for homework related queries, not shopping, which is very interesting, right? So Google in an antitrust trial is sending the message, yes, they're coming for us, but not our cash cow, which in general isn't really how competition works. Generally, they come for your whole cash cow. But we've got that. And then we've got Meta, where you obviously have a point of view. So what's happening here? How seriously do our listeners need to take this DC action?
These all just seem like kangaroo courts to me. I mean, like, people are just like, I don't even know what to, like, it's all just like grandstanding and positioning and stupid.
But these aren't like congressional hearings where like the Congress people want their sound bites. Like this is like the Federal Trade Commission.
Yeah, but they just like appeal it forever. I don't know. Like this just feels to me like we're in this moment of like there's maximum loudness out of DC and minimum anything else, right? And this just feels like more loudness, right? And like, yes, there's like a game that each company is playing about, you know, what they're going to say versus not say and positioning, and the media likes it. It's all good fodder. Like, it's all fun, right? Kevin's System on the Stand is like fun.
Kevin being like, Mark tried to destroy Instagram because it was competing with Facebook.
Yeah, it's like, it's just like gaming. I don't know. Like, I find it like, I read the headlines too because it's engaging and fun, but it just feels like, of all the things going on, the only thing that seems like it has any stakes is some of the Google stuff, right? Not the ad network stuff because no one really cares, right? But the search stuff, like that is the only thing with any stakes. And it's kind of entertaining when Google's like, ooh, ChatGPT, and ChatGPT's like, ooh, but it's just like everyone's just talking their book with the lawyer behind them.
Brit, what's your take, especially on Google?
I'm taking it more seriously than I think Sam is. I feel like it was surprising to see the outcome of the Google hearings and sort of the framework of which they're talking about having to divest things like Chrome and the advertising, you know, some of the ad tech that they've built. And I think with the Meta trial now looming, if that also tends to go and not in favor of Meta, and we start to see dismantling of parts of Google and Meta, and to Sam's point, it's not going to happen instantly, but over the next couple of years, that has humongous repercussions. We have not seen that since Microsoft. And I think, I mean, we could all just talk about whether we think it's true or not. I mean, it's literally like the global digital ad spend, Google and Meta dominate, right? And that's like a $740 billion market. Like, if that, even 10% of that was divested and open, it would create a lot of really interesting changes in the startup ecosystem in so many ways.
It just won't happen. Like, the Google case, the Meta case is so weak. Did you guys sign up for MeWe? I did.
Wait, what's MeWe?
MeWe is like the theoretical. The government has this ridiculous argument that like the social networking space is like Meta properties plus this startup called MeWe, which is a piece of trash, and Snap, and like that's the entire, and that's like ridiculous.
Yeah, they don't include TikTok. They don't include iMessage. They don't.
Even our 8-year-old in the car the other day, in the context of arguing about something, goes, well, technically, text messaging is social media, so I can use social media. And you're like, Lion, you can't use social media, but good argument. You're right. Text messaging is social media. So it's just a ridiculous case.
Well, but Sam, they're very different. And actually, I'm going to do what you guys hate when I do, is just step back and explain things a little bit too. So simply, the Google cases were Justice Department lawsuits. There are two. One was more around the display ad business. One is more around search. Both, it's much further along. So we're in the kind of remedies part of it. And it seems really likely that Google is going to have to sell a piece of its like display marketplace business, which is definitely not the cash cow of Google.
To Oracle? Is it Oracle going to buy it?
I'm wondering if Pinterest is going to buy it. Honestly, this is a guess. I have no information here, but this is just sort of like a guess. And then the other one is more, we're still figuring out what's happening in search. But what's happening this week is we're having a lot of Google execs testify. And they're interesting nugget. Maybe these are only interesting to a business reporter, but you're seeing all these questions around the actual usage of Google products, and Gemini are starting to get answered a little bit. So Gemini has 35 million daily actives. I think ChatGPT has 500 million monthlies. And actually, Gemini is 350 million monthlies. So that's not that. But anyway, there's a lot of nuggets. The Meta case is very, very different. The Meta case is looking at this issue of should they have been allowed to acquire Instagram and WhatsApp back in the day. There's a lot of smart people who think revisiting acquisitions is not something the government should do. And actually, in one of the Google cases, the judge even said that. But what the government is trying to do is say that Google is dominant in the world of social media, which it defines the way you just defined it, Sam. And what Meta is trying to do is saying, actually, we face intense competition from TikTok, YouTube, iMessage, and so forth. And again, so with Google, we're in like the final stages of remedies, although there'll be appeals. And then in Meta, we've got a couple more months even of testimony before there would be another trial about what happens and if there's actual divestiture. So Sam's point of view is this is a clown show. Brit's point of view is actually even minor changes and moves when you're talking about the digital advertising market could be kind of seismic.
Advertising, search, or social, any of the moves that might have to happen across all of these categories.
Dave, do you have any high-level thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I get that it feels like theater, but antitrust isn't just about what happens in court. It's also about narratives that shape market behavior. And it feels to me like some of this is a response to concentrated power, even symbolically, and what is going to be built next, right? Like, I found it really interesting that OpenAI was first to raise their hand this morning about, hey, we'll buy Chrome. It's like, what's the last remedy that you would want to happen here if there were to be a remedy? It's like, let's hand the prior monopoly's most important asset to the new upcoming monopoly and let them get even bigger and concentrate even more power. Like, that would be the last possible thing that you would want to happen if this weren't all just theater, like what Sam's saying. And so, I don't know, I think that this is kind of a bigger thing. It's like a huge society level narrative and conversation that's playing out where people are kind of looking around and governments are looking around trying to figure out, like, what do they do about the fact that, like, all of distribution and all of identity are consolidated in a very small number of places? And what do we do about this? And, you've even got people like Elon, who's a tech person, over there in the government trying to consolidate data systems, consolidate your social security records with your IRS records. They're basically trying to become another identity player in this game. And then they've got this Justice Department FTC thing going on that's another part of the conversation. And so I just think that this is actually a conversation about where innovation goes from here more than anything. And yeah, like, whether or not relitigating what happened in 2012, I don't know that it matters or who cares. And there's certainly some super smart, shots being fired. It seems like in both cases, like, Google lost some of these battles. It seems like Meta, that Kevin Systrom thing yesterday was pretty fire. Like, looks like Meta took a pretty serious hit yesterday. Do they lose the war? I don't know. But I think this is a bigger conversation than just these things.
A few things I'd call out in very rapid fire. One, I do think, to Dave's point and the meta narratives of society and consolidation, I love irony. I love historical irony. The internet was supposed to be, in technology, everyone had this vision that it was going to be this decentralizing force, and it's hilariously done exactly the opposite, which is it's hyper-centralizing. Technology tends to be hyper-centralizing. We have an interesting moment of that. Two, fish that ate the whale. My favorite antitrust story that I've been spending time on recently is about United Fruit and the Banana Man. The Banana Man. Which
I love that you found this book by recommendation at the bottom of your prior book.
I love it. It's great. And this book is about the politics of the fruit monopolies in a lot of ways and the fruit wars from 100 years ago. It's fascinating. It's a story of globalization and global trade and deglobalization. It's also a story of government leverage and oversight. Because to the point, Dave, it's the basic story is they had a consolidated, effectively, monopoly around United Fruit. For political reasons around antitrust, Sam, the Banana Man, got his shares out and ended up competing with United Fruit. And then a few years later, the government turned around and forced them to merge because the two companies literally started a hot war and was destabilizing Latin America.
Give the people the years we're talking about here.
This is between the late 1800s and the 1950s. This story is playing out, and it's great because it's the whole thing is because they're well, wait a minute, you literally just made us divest this because of antitrust. And now the government's forcing us to remerge. And they're yeah, the stability of Latin America is more important than the fruit monopoly, right? And so I just think it's all it's really interesting because we have these laws, we have these frameworks. In the end of the day, it does break down to the Eye of Sauron and power in a lot of ways, right? And look, if we were having a serious legal conversation right now, what we really should be talking about is IP and LLMs. That's actually the relevant conversation about legal frameworks right now and what is happening in technology. But obviously the government is addressing 10 years ago's problems And the reality is, just like United Fruit, I really doubt that any of this will have any real impact. What will ultimately happen is the technology winds will change. And just like United Fruit, it'll eventually kind of unravel.
Yeah, this is a good point, Sam. I was on a call yesterday looking at the P&L of a media company of a certain scale on the internet.
Ooh, send me that P&L.
Yeah, Jess, I've got a conversation I need to have with you later.
Okay.
But the fascinating thing was that the advertising side of this business is just collapsing. I mean, it literally lost 40 to 50% of its value in the last 12 months. And the subscription side is actually, to Jess, your brilliant points over the last year, holding strong, doing great. But to see actually a really clear and present example of what the LLM world is doing to media businesses in real time, it made me start thinking about this question of, is the internet as we know it, is the contract between the internet content creators and the advertising, networks collapsing as we know it? Like, will the web even exist?
No, 100% it is. Like, obviously.
I mean, I had been thinking about that intellectually for months, and then I saw this actual P&L, and I'm like, the entire core of the social contract at the center of the internet is like falling apart in real time right now.
Which, by the way, is what the LLMs require.
I don't know. I don't know that drop of ad revenue is directly related to LLMs. Like,
it absolutely is. The traffic's falling through the floor.
I know that's because how many links does Google now put above anything on Google searches? Not only are they putting their sponsored links, then they're putting like AI suggestions, then they're putting rankings, and they're changing the rankings all the time, more than ever.
You're making the point.
But it's not about people using LLMs. It's about Google and its search power to mitigate.
It's the same thing, Brit. The LLM is now driving the top of the Google result page.
They're related, but they're important differences.
The traffic isn't going to the media publishers anymore.
I know, but I'm arguing it's not just because of LLMs. Like, I think Google itself.
And this is why I'm saying that, like, OpenAI buying Chrome would be the literal worst thing that could happen to the internet today.
OpenAI is building an internet company. They're building a social network.
Well, they want to, because it turns out that LLM's a terrible fucking business.
Well, also they need the data. But here was my LLM media company holy shit moment of the day. So we're hosting a big event in New York on Monday called Financing the AI Revolution. So it's Wall Street meets tech, AI financing. Couldn't be more topical, if I do say so myself.
Is the subtext line, how large a money fire do you want?
Well, this is the agenda, guys. I just want to, and what's really cool, I was reading it. We have a panel titled Elon, Sam, or Jensen. It's a pretty good title. Elon, Sam, or Jensen, How Public and Private Investors Are Playing AI with Gavin Baker.
Sam who?
The Banana Man.
My team has, even though I'm not hosting this event, they've roped me in to do some interviews. And I do start my research at ChatGPT. I do. I write and I say, okay, what does ChatGPT think I should ask all the people I'm interviewing? And I then spend many subsequent hours doing my own research, but whatever. And I said, okay, tell me all the AI companies that this firm has invested in. And it does. And guess what? It doesn't matter if it's 70% right or 80% right, because I'm researching, right? I'm not like taking this to the public and markets or whatever, and I'm not actually publishing an article directly based on it, right? I'm doing my research as many business people around the world are want to do in their research. And I was like, holy shit, I never need to pay another cent for PitchBook, Crunchbase, like any of these things, right? And it's also interesting because I think a lot about this as a content creator, where it's like, okay, what products, the information, if I'm doing my job correctly, has incredible data that no one else in the world has, and Crunchbase doesn't have, and PitchBook doesn't have. And like, I need to build amazing experiences on top of that are like this moment I had in trying to figure out what AI companies this person was invested in. But it's like, it actually makes me think just skipping that whole level of like building the databases out and getting like right to that like research answer kind of product level, because that's what the like ChatGPT is like training us to do. Like, I'm just like asking it a question, but that is incredibly disruptive to the media business. It's also why publishers can't be forging partnerships with ChatGPT to do that because the end game is they're totally disintermediated, right? And a great example of like, if that's the great user experience, publishers have to build it themselves, and in no way, shape, or form should be turning that data over.
Yeah, it reminds me of the moment that publishers all got pitched to put their RSS feeds into Apple News and Google News and MSN News so that people can read your content through these other really large distributed apps. But then why would they ever click through to anything on your website? And
it turns out they don't.
They don't. Publishers have been fooled by this once before. You can't be fooled again.
It's more powerful this time, I guess, which is the question that I'm asking.
Oh, it's definitely more powerful, Dave. Absolutely. You're totally right.
The entire social contract of the internet is at risk right now. And so, like, is the web dying as we know it?
Of course it's dying.
Well, but I think we've been talking about this in the abstract and intellectually, and we're actually starting to see it on the P&Ls. And that, to me, is like a real signal that something is afoot.
What did you expect to happen, though? Like, I feel like we've been talking about this, and it's like as an obviously what's going to happen for years now. Like, I find nothing surprising here.
It's not surprising. It's like, okay, it's here. What's next? You know, like we're in the middle of a very chaotic period, right? And I don't know. I mean, Jess, to your point, like there's a lot of really interesting new behavior happening, right? Like it's not just a search. It's not just I'm not just asking it for the news. I'm often asking it how I should think about something. And so there's like an entirely new behavioral shift happening here. And I think that's fertile ground for the ecosystem. But to bring it back to what we're talking about with the antitrust trials, like at the end of the day, we want the ecosystem to be fertile, right? Like we want there to be innovation. We want people to actually build new and interesting things inside of this behavioral, milieu that's out there. And if the antitrust questions are focused on the wrong vector, then we end up with just, a depressed, ecosystem where people can't innovate, right? Like if we just end up with another large set of concentrated centralized powers, then like we're not moving forward and the ecosystem just doesn't have innovation. And that seems like a scary question to me.
I think that there will be innovation, though. I just don't think the government is like, in the end of the day, like great economies win. Like this is my whole thing is like the internet was a great economy, but it was always kind of broken.
But now it's actually broken.
But it was always kind of broken, and now it's just accelerating into full break, right? And like there were some attempts to like change it, or like Facebook, for instance, was in the early days an attempt to change the economics of the internet for people, and it did it pretty successfully for a while, right? So did Instagram. Like there are these. Basically, the question is what new economies get built that actually work between people.
So what new economies get built?
Well, look, I think a lot around cults, trust, and identity is like where the game is at. I mean, Jess, you and I talked about your secret plans, which I think are really good, different take on the economy of how to leverage these things. I think like, I do think that, again, cults and influencers are like a huge part of the story of like how people build economies, which will be really interesting in a different set of patterns. And look, I do think the LLMs are going to collapse under their own weight if they can't figure out how to pay people and deal them into the economy, right? Because in the end of the day, like that's the irony of the whole thing is like these things have drafted off of free, basically the old economy. They basically just stole a bunch of information that was put out there in an old model in an old economy and hoovered it up to make what they've made. And that's fine for a while, and there's actually a lot of value in it. But like if you can't get the flywheel going of production and consumption, then like and like Sam's not an idiot. No one's stupid. That's why they care about building social products. They're trying to figure out how to pump information. That's why Elon likes Twitter. Like this is not a like unknown thing, but I don't think we have like a good answer to it. And I don't think it's going to be like micropayments because that's stupid.
Yeah, it feels like we're moving from an economy of distribution, right? A distribution-based economy to a trust-based economy.
Amen. That just helped my business.
But that's 100% because in the end of the day, like if you look at the history of communication and technology, there's just been like implicit trust baked in that's been changing over a long time. So a long time ago, humans are designed around trust networks. If you live in a small village with a bunch of other people, you're not going to fuck them because you have to live next to them for the rest of your life. Right? Like it's like if you get fucked, you're gonna fuck back, right? And so like there was a total social financial network built into that. The internet originally was considered unwashed and unsafe. Like Facebook made it safe by putting real identity and real names against it. And then people opened up and they traded with each other on like an ongoing basis. That's broken down because of Russian butt farms and everything else that's going on. The economics used to support some level of truth. That's kind of collapsed. We used to have inherent trust for the last 100 years in recorded media because it was pretty hard. It was pretty hard and expensive to fake audio and video and visual. So like we were like, okay, the moon landing probably happened because like faking it would have been really fucking hard. Now it's super easy to fake. So like that breaks down. So like everything becomes like when the content is cheap and easy and infinite, then yes, like the entire thing is about trust and identity. And we never fully solved those problems. Like the internet economy never really worked on that basis, but it like was worked enough. And like LLMs just tipped it over the edge.
I think it's really fascinating what will emerge. I don't think it's obvious. And I love talking to my publisher friends about this because I think there are just so many differing points of views.
The biggest mistake, though, that the publishers might make again, because they made it the first time, and like people who are trusted brands and have apparatus for truth and reality, is handing over their swords to the LLMs for distribution.
They've already had, the only one who has it is the New York Times. That's my monthly note of appreciation and recognition of the courage and integrity of the New York Times. Which isn't to say I agree with all their reporting. Those are two different things.
So Jess, can you help? Why are these people so stupid?
Oh, Sam, it's so easy. It's so easy to understand how stupid they are. They want to be in the job for 3 more years and get promoted or retired to something else. There's no even medium-term thinking in this industry. And it is like someone shows up, OpenAI shows up to Axel Springer or News Corp and says, actually, you don't even have to do anything else except give up your IP and reason for existing and sign away these legal claims. Like, you don't even have to launch new products. You don't even have to do this. You don't have to do that. And you're going to get a check.
Before the LLMs, they handed the sword to the social media networks, right?
Yeah, but this is different and worse.
Well, I don't know. I think people do this. People create content and media and entertainment because they want to find resonance, right? They want resonance with people that are interested in the same thing that they're interested in, or laugh because the jokes that they make, or they have an emotion that they had and they put it into a story and they want resonance, right? And in the case of LLMs, it's, the AIs in between you and the content in social media land. People had to go and create these massive spam networks, right? Like you had to create an enormous amount of excess content, right? In order to feed the algorithm to try to get distribution. And everybody knew when your favorite media brand, I can think of one that I really loved in the 2010s that, decided to switch its strategy from making the media that was resonant with me to trying to spam in order to create more content for the social media networks. And when they did that, they lost resonance, right? They lost their core audience. And so to me, like, it feels like that's where we're going, that like AI is finally hollowing out the final core of this weird broken business model that Sam references. And we're kind of going back to people looking for voices they can trust. That might be an AI voice, by the way. It might be an actual creator voice, and trying to find resonance again and to create like a truly resonant audience, right? Where there's true trust. And like that to me is like maybe what's happening.
But the question, Dave, is I think there's like a deeper thing going on. And there's like, people sometimes talk about content as a single economy. It's definitely not. There are two distinct, there's entertainment.
As a what economy?
A single economy. It's not. There are two economies. There's information and entertainment.
Yeah.
Right? They're completely different economies. Right. The entertainment economy has got to go to zero, right? It's just an AI jerk off feed. It's going to be highly personalized, like whatever. Like it's not like I just don't imagine a world where there's anything other than like highly personalized, highly tailored, like, jokes and memes for micro communities down to an audience of one.
That's pretty cynical, man. Humans love story.
Yeah, they want the story that's best for them.
Dude, this is the plot line of the studio.
No, I know. I'm like, Sam, how can you? I mean, I don't disagree. Look, maybe it's a question of time. You might be right for 90% of the entertainment market. And then every once in a while, there's going to be something that captures the imagined.
I speak with the perma 1% exception, which is there'll be something that doesn't fit this, but the vast majority of the industry is going to be like a personalized jerk off feed, and like that's fine. Like that's just what it is. I think there's a second market around media, which actually I'll admit is a little complexifying, which is people don't know what the fuck to say to each other. Like they're very unoriginal and very boring in general, and they're also scared. And so the second part of the economy, which sports kind of is filling or whatever, is I need something that's safe for me to talk with other people about, or I don't have anything to say. So say something that makes me feel like I can say something because I have nothing to say. And like, that's like a meme economy where actually it can't just be one-on-one jerk off feed. It has to be like a thing I can share with Dave. And then I'm getting credit for making Dave laugh. But again, it can't be, there's something weird going on there because if it's just AI generated, it's kind of like, remember, like all the adults, the parents were obsessed with like AI wrote my dinner toast for me, and now no one gives a fuck because like obviously AI wrote it, so it's boring. Like, but there's going to be some social dynamic around shareable, connectable media, and then there's information, which is a completely different economy where it's like crazy to ever give up. If you have information, edge, and trust, it's crazy to ever give that up to anyone else.
I think you're missing a category.
Yeah, there's a third way.
I think I was going to call it education, which could be everything from like crowdsourced Reddit style people like educating each other on different things, asking questions, to like what largely a lot of women go to Pinterest for instance, like whether it's like how to apply makeup or do fashion in certain ways or decorate their homes or like new recipes. Like there's this whole lifestyle category that does have new novelty into it. It's not just entertainment for entertainment's sake and that people are learning from. And so I think that category in itself is a whole other branch.
It's hard to see that surviving though, Brit, because like AI will either just like subsume it all and like it'll just be like, yeah, it's fine, it's done. Or people don't educate each other just for the sake of it. They educate it for clout or for power or money.
But there's trends that roll through this. AI is not just going to like become the best fashion blogger.
I think they also do it for meaning. Right? Like they do it because they love helping their fellow man.
I don't think anyone loves that. I think people love power.
I don't know, man. I think there's like a bunch of people called teachers that teach your children, and they do it because they love the job.
That's a complicated one. I'm happy that teachers exist, but I actually think a lot of like, interestingly, like I think the problem with teachers, right? And this is obviously very broad stroke. There's many exceptions to this, but the broad problem is that we didn't want to pay them as society. So we told them their jobs were important. And therefore, they should like invest in like they can shape the future. And they decided to shape their future as they saw fit, which wasn't necessarily in line with the values of society.
Okay, moving on. I don't want to go down that whole dive. Okay, but we're talking about the information market and the different components of it, which will obviously react differently in this new regime. I think it's hard to make predictions at this point, other than the fact that selling your information to these businesses for pennies to AI businesses for pennies is just idiotic. But yeah, maybe there are other takeaways.
So Dave, I have a question, and Dave and Brit and Jess, which is like, I always think that like one of the best ways to think about how things really play out is porn, right? Because porn is just like the bleeding edge of like incentives. And so I guess the question for me is like, do you think that AI is going to fuck up OnlyFans or no?
I have a feeling you are the most qualified to answer this question.
Yeah, I've never actually used OnlyFans.
You have, put differently, OnlyFans to AI porny stuff is very similar to like Uber drivers to self-driving cars.
So can the OnlyFans creators co-opt AI is sort of the question.
And does a male brain care if it's an AI or a real person?
My answer is the same. I had a slightly different take on the third rail. Like, Sam, I think you're describing these two zones of information and entertainment relatively well. And I think this applies to your question about OnlyFans as well. I think that in the entertainment zone, I actually think there's two pathways. There's not only one. You're right. In the digital realm, it is likely that AI will drive this like super mimetic, high volume, crazy sort of race to the zero, can't remember how you framed it, culture, right? And probably OnlyFans and those types of things get caught up in that too. But I think my prior point also still stands, which like I think humans look for resonance and trust with other humans. And just like all of us are talking about that we like watching the studio, and there's something about the studio and how awesome it is, and like the way they're filming it, the way they're telling stories. Like, I don't think that rail dies. I think that rail, if anything, gets stronger, and that you'll have all three of these things playing out. You'll have the information economy. You'll have this like, I don't know, call it the like final boss of the Marvel worldwide entertainment zone. It's like Marvel and WWE and the whole digital entertainment zone fit in that realm. And then there's this other realm, which is like human story, human engagement, human trust, human resonance, music. Why did Jess go to Coachella? Why did you want to stand in the audience? Why do we want to be in a Warriors game in the front row? You know, like there is this like deeply human thing that I think is super real and is still going to be there no matter what happens with this next phase of AI.
I think that makes a lot of sense. Okay, any more thoughts on this before we get to a couple more? We should probably talk about, you know, the fact that, I mean, it just makes me laugh that, Tesla has always sort of been a meme stock. Sam, I'll spare you the point of saying, yes, you've always said it's a meme stock.
It's finally falling apart. It's pretty wild to watch, actually. Although the stock is strange today. The pattern was weird.
So the earnings were earlier this week. Huge impact in sales. And then you have all these executives like trying to justify it based on like execution and supply chain and all these like traditional corporate things that could reek with your sales. And then in passing, they're like, and also the protests. And then Elon comes on and says, I'm going down to 1 day a week at Doge, that good old 20% time, and the stock rallies. I guess my question, and we don't have enough time on this episode to go, nor do we really want to go deep into Elon land. But like, I guess like, can you fix, I'm kind of curious, like, can you have it both ways as a company? And like, what was a like creator driven cult of personality company? Like, can it become something else? Or is this always just going to be like subject to like how many hours people think Elon is spending on Tesla and the stock price will be correlated to that? It's freaking bizarre.
I think the answer is absolutely that you can have companies that like go far beyond like their initial kickstart from a creator, for sure. Right. And I think like, so I think Tesla, the thing that's interesting about Tesla is, if anything, I'd actually argue it's right now, like as of the moment, the second we are, April 23rd, whatever, the Elon comes back, Messiah back narrative is like very like all positive for them. Like if they were a normal car company, they'd be getting crushed, right?
Do you mean that if he goes back now and, you know, there's sort of a rise out of this, the doldrums that they're in right now, that's all positive?
Well, I'm just saying that like, right, you have a car company that is like shitting the bed, right? It wouldn't be trading. And I mean, like if it weren't an Elon company and there wasn't a Messiah return story, like this thing would be getting fucking hammered.
Yeah, it's strange that it's not after yesterday.
Well, it's because of the retail army and the Messiah that is Elon, right? And he, like, so I think actually in this case, it's like an interesting thing. There is separation between the two. It's far enough along. It's a real car company, whatever. But like the founder Elon narrative can be like all positive from that perspective in this moment. I'm not saying it wasn't really negative for the last few months. It obviously was, but like now we have like the risen from the ashes part of the story. It's also funny because here's the reality. If you have that bad a quarter, right, your next quarter will probably be not as bad.
I don't know. They had a bad quarter last quarter.
Well, we'll see. Like this is going to be the interesting test. It's like there's two things going on. One is you have Messiah rise from ashes story. So like Elon comes back, the thing fucking comes back, which it might. Who knows, right? In which case he gets to claim victory. It's like if you have that bad a quarter, like things do tend, we'll see what happens. So there's like be Elon's back and number go up, you know, or it's well, guess what? It doesn't matter because Elon founder is just, this is now a robotics company. It's kind of like, remember how like Twitter used to keep telling people that their actual metric to pay attention to was different every quarter?
Every company does this. Netflix just stopped reporting subscriber numbers. This is not unique to one company.
Yeah, so you just like, it's just like managing the public market is you tell the investors what number to pay attention to. And so it's like, oh shit, car not so good business. Like pay attention robot,
Well, I just saw a headline that the robots are in trouble because of China. They can't get the robot parts or something.
It's interesting to look at this chart. Like the chart basically bumps on the election and then actually falls off a cliff around February 20th.
No, it's like January 20th if you look at it.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Look, but what is it? Buy the story, sell the news, or buy the rumor, sell the news. That's what this is.
Basically dropped off a cliff and is mostly sideways right now.
Yeah, it's like horizontal for what was all of 2024. So it'll be interesting to see if anything even happens at this point with Elon being back. Like, does performance shift at all?
Look, in the end of the day, this is just like a capitalism thing, right? Where like if you want to stuff billions of dollars somewhere within an infinity story, right? You just don't have that many options.
It's basically sideways since the pandemic in reality. It's very interesting.
I think it's just like, look, all Tesla is a very overpriced option on like robotic infinity self-driving robots, right? And like there's a bunch of people who are willing to buy that. And like everything is about the marginal buyer.
I think you've also got a lot of buyers that just love the cars. They drive the cars. The cars are great.
Yeah, I just love the car.
Well, but it's also like it doesn't actually matter, Brit, if you love the car because you own the car. The question is whether the marginal buyer loves the car, right? And so that's like it could be that like everything is about marginal buyers in life. And like I just don't, for the car, who's the marginal buyer? For the stock, who's the marginal buyer? What story are they buying? Like these are the questions.
I get it. I just don't think there's still another car on the market that competes with all of the different features that Tesla offers.
This is actually a great frame, Sam, because the marginal buyer today is buying because self-driving. And this is the only viable self-driving car in the United States. There is no other option.
Maybe some marginal buy, I see what you're saying, Dave, but I don't know that how big the universe of people who are buying a car to be fully self-driving is today.
Look, I almost bought a Tesla like a month ago because it costs as much as a cell phone because they're trying to get them off lots. Like, so the marginal buyer, I was almost the marginal buyer because it was free.
Yeah.
Well, that sort of changes the liquidity curve a little bit. Time will tell. I do wonder something you said, Sam, was like, if maybe Elon was like, look, if I tank this thing by being distracted, whenever I come back, it's going to go up and I'm going to look like a savior. It's pretty smart. Pretty smart.
If basically it was like a ratchet, right? And like every time Elon leaves, everyone's like, that's okay, it's down 10%. But then every time he returns, it's up 20%. You just do that every 6 months, you're crushing it, right? Like, so it's all about marginal story.
Yeah. It's a couple weeks old now, but everyone should read the very good Wall Street Journal story about how he deals with his wives and children. Just a good read.
The Wall Street Journal is covering his love life.
It's about how he handles
the payola.
How he finds and grooms women to have children with him, and what happens afterwards.
What do you get? $15 million, I think, if you're one of his baby mamas.
Wait, 15 million? That's it?
15 million for the child's life, I think.
But that just doesn't that sound cheap to you?
I mean, that's unbelievably cheap. This is a cent a billionaire. That's like $1.
Well, Trump is reportedly thinking about baby boom bonuses of $5,000 if you want to have a baby. So
I just think $15 million, like, net of taxes, if you're good at investing, is like $750,000 a year. That's not nothing. But for like the world's richest man, that just seems like I would want my kids to have more money.
I think it was also like $100,000 a month or something. I don't know. I mean, I think there was, but that was what was quoted to the women if they were told that they would behave.
I mean, that's crazy. 0.015%, right?
It's really hard to know his wealth, to be honest, given Tesla. I mean, I'm not saying it's not.
I mean, that's based on 100 billion.
I just think it's like if I were like Elon's 37th child, and I was like, I got a $15 million vig for that, but like that's about it because I'm like the 1,000th child. I'd be like, that kind of is like a weird deal.
Well, you don't get to choose who your parents are, just to remind you of how it works. But crazy. That's all I can say. Crazy. We have a couple more things we have to get through. Sam, you had a big content drop this week. You want to plug it?
Sure. You should go to my Twitter /Lessin and read the 2025 Where We Are in Venture Capital deck. I wrote this on airplanes.
Can you give me the ChatGPT version?
No, I intentionally make it But you got to read it.
I did read it. I'm trying to put ourselves in the shoes of the listener.
No, Spam Lessin wants to email you. So you got to drop in your email to get it.
So I believe the last time you did this about a year ago, the headline was that the industrial venture capital system, industrial complex was over. Is it still dead, on life support?
Well, okay, I'll give you. So it was 2 years ago I wrote.
God, time flies. Was it really 2 years ago?
Yeah, that's why I refreshed it. It's been too long. Basically, it's like the end of the factory farmed venture unicorn and the VC industrial pipeline. The factory shuts down with no public market demand, ripples back through the economy, whole thing breaks. Factory lines still shut down. Unicorns, people thought were going to die, but they didn't die. They just became what I'm calling zombiecorns. They still exist. They cut spend. They can't grow. They just exist. They're zombies. And basically, the big story now is that you should read the details, but like we basically now exist in a world there's no longer a single venture capital market or a capital market. There's at least three that are actually distinct and not very interoperable. There's the public market, there's late stage private, and there's early. And the thing about it is the valuation approaches for all of them are completely different. They're actually largely incompatible, and very few companies can actually move between them, right? And so it's just like a very different economy and economic setup where LPs are thinking about how they allocate to these totally different economies effectively. And then GPs, people running the money, like really have to be very clear on what their LPs are actually wanting them to do, right? Because it's not all just like get public, deliver DPI, because that's not even possible. Like different LPs are like, I need to stuff billions of dollars somewhere. And like, I want a volatility launder. I don't want to see volatility because everything else is super volatile. So just tell me the number is always the same. If that's what your LPs want, fucking do that for them, right? Other people want like, DPI. Other people just like, so that you have to really understand that like in some ways, just as our current world is regionalizing and factionalizing and deglobalizing and that level, so is capital. And there's a bunch of implications to that. And what founders you back and what I call SFD, which is straight fucking down if you're a skier, but it is story, founder, and deal over commoditizing technology.
I like that little nugget.
You like SFD?
That's pretty insider, Sam. But those of us that know, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I go for. If you know, you know. Little about Riz and Tiz, the AZ line on what you look for in founders. How you should invest in memes and not elevator pitches anymore because no one rides elevators. And about survivability of capital, things like that.
Sounds great. I've skimmed it. I'm gonna go back and do a deep dive.
Yeah, people like it.
It's good. Morans, what do you guys have cooking? What's happening in your portfolios?
Oh, lots of things going on in the portfolios. I've been really into the health side of the world lately, which has been really fun. And then we're incubating a number of cool things that are getting out into market finally. So stay tuned for us to to float them here as we need to push them out into the market.
This is what it's for.
Yeah. And then the wildest thing that's caught me off guard today in the world of Trump is this like baby boom thing, which I just referenced. But the main thing that I think that the proposal he has to award a national medal of motherhood to women who have 6 or more children is the just icing on the cake for this one. And I think it'll be really fascinating to see what happens.
Wait, what? Is this real?
This is real. Trump is trying to make America have another baby boom, like the boomer generation, because like fertility, everyone's like stopped having children. And he's trying to think about proposals to make this happen. So a $5,000 subsidy if you have per child, government funded education programs about menstrual cycles so women know when their fertility window is, and a national medal of motherhood if you have 6 or more children.
I have to go, obviously, because I do, but I will say in my partnering on this is there's an obvious solution if you want more kids. Obvious.
Okay, I'm holding my breath here.
Does it involve OnlyFans?
Every kid, your tax bill, 20% off the top.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Jess, how many kids would we have if we got 20% less for every kid? If we could just take the number and multiply by 0.8 or 0.6, I mean, that kid would be so fucking profitable.
Yeah, for 20% off my taxes, totally in.
Exactly. Forget this 5,000. It's all about tax breaks.
There's also a weird business model in here somewhere. Like I would surrogate for other people too, because I have an easy time being pregnant if I could get like money off from their tax savings.
There's a whole, it's all, my initial idea was just if you have a certain number of kids as a woman, you just don't pay taxes. Like that alone would be and it's actually not a terrible idea, because you think about one of the biggest problems with the entire system is we monetize women's work, right? We told them instead of being in the household where they were working, you need to work in the economy. Problem is, you work in the normal economy for cash, you got to fucking pay taxes.
I actually like this point he's making. I'm into this one.
So here's the thing. If you're a woman and you were working before and doing the homework, but you weren't monetized, and now you're monetized and you're making $100K a year, but you're paying $50 in taxes, you can't even afford childcare because the tax burden fucks you. And so if you're just like, look, you have children, no taxes, the whole thing works.
Right. And then I think women who don't work will feel like they're contributing to the family, financials in that way, even though it's on the other side of the equation.
Right. And then you're like, all of a sudden, you don't get into this terrible thing where women don't want to work because it doesn't economically make sense because they want to stay with the kids. And then
Exactly. That's what I like about this. Yeah. Good one, Sam. I like it.
Boom. Problem solved.
Okay, we solved it.
Bye.
Sometimes Sam has to leave the room and I just have to take a deep breath, guys. I just have to pause.
We're with you, Jess. We're holding your hand.
Thank God.
It's like there's a little more oxygen. No, I'm joking. But Dave, on that effect, did I see a tweet from you recently? Are you back on X?
I've always been on X. I view X as work. Yeah.
Okay. Because I love to, there's something often mysterious about people's social media uses, aka Sam's, but I saw something from you that I found calming, but I'm not sure I understood. So perhaps you can unpack it as we send our fair listeners off into their day. But be the mountain, not the storm. Oh, tell us, wise one. Why did we feel the need to?
It was a Zen style, almost koan riddle that I was thinking about last night. Just there's a lot of chaos in the world right now. We just spent a whole episode talking about it, right? The market's chaos, the venture market's chaos. There's just like a lot going on. And so people are looking for calm. They're looking for, what action do I take? How do I show up amongst all of this? And I think it's easy to, point out all of the things that are going wrong, all the fractures in things. And that seems to be a lot what's going on with people. But I think there's just like a pretty fundamental thing going on in the world right now. I think that we're, in the middle of a new emergence, like almost like an evolutionary period where there's a lot of cool new things happening. There's new behavior. We've got these AIs in our lives. We've got new ways to tell stories. And should you be the storm in that world, or should you try to be the mountain and try to find a way to hold a center and be a source of stability for the people around you, and just kind of be excited that there's a lot of cool stuff going on. And, if you're a founder or an investor right now, like I think the next 10 years are actually pretty exciting and are going to be pretty interesting. So be the mountain, not the storm.
That's really beautiful.
I'm glad Sam wasn't here to hear.
Sam would have a rebuttal that would change this moment.
I've been on a lot of mountains lately, so I think about mountains a lot,
Well, great. Well, it was fun to see you guys. I'm glad that I missed you. And we're back. We've got a packed spring into summer agenda. So a big thank you to our wonderful listeners. Thank you guys for sharing and commenting and sending us feedback on the pod. Hopefully, I will see many of you next week in New York for the Informations event. If you want more details, you can find me through all the ways. I'm happy to share them. And with that, we'll see everyone here next week for another episode of More or Less. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
See you later.
If you enjoyed this show, please leave us a virtual high five by rating it and reviewing it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcast. Find more information about each episode in the show notes and follow us on social media by searching for @MoreOrLess, @DaveMorin, @Lessin, @JLessin, and as for me, I'm @Brit. See you guys next time.